The margin between a championship ring and absolute unmitigated disaster? Well, it's razor thin. Welcome to NFL Nexus. Today, we're unpacking a truly terrifying moment that just sent an absolute shockwave through the heart of a franchise. Now, before we dive deep into this explainer, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and comment down below with what you thought. And hey, if you truly want to support the deep dive cinematic analysis we do here every single week, definitely consider becoming a channel member. So let's set the stage. The NFL offseason is this grueling, meticulously engineered machine. Franchises are out here spending hundreds of millions of dollars in guaranteed contracts. You've got scouting departments pouring literally tens of thousands of hours into film evaluation, agonizing over microscopic draft details. The players? They're enduring an unimaginable physical toll, pushing their bodies to the absolute brink in these isolated training facilities. All of this preparation, all of this money, and all of this hope culminates right here, under the punishing California sun at training camp. We spend months analyzing this groundwork, right? We project win totals, we map out the road to the Super Bowl, but the reality of the National Football League is so much darker. It is a brutal, unforgiving war of attrition. And as we just witnessed out in Oxnard, California, the grandest, most expensive plans of an entire organization can be brought to a terrifying, screeching halt before the pads even go on. Everything changed in seconds. I really want you to let that reality sink in for a moment. This is the visceral, horrifying experience of an NFL coaching staff. The environment in Oxnard, it's perfectly curated. You can practically smell the freshly cut grass. You can hear the relentless clicking of the media's camera shutters. The air is just brimming with this pure, unadulterated optimism of a brand new slate. Coaches have scripted every single drill down to the millisecond. General managers have curated what they genuinely believe is the perfect combination of speed, power, and intelligence. But here's the thing, the turf doesn't negotiate with front offices. The human body, no matter how highly conditioned, has absolute unforgiving limits. In the literal blink of an eye, the narrative of a billion-dollar franchise shifts from Lombardi Trophy aspirations to pure, desperate, unadulterated survival. So you might be asking yourself, how quickly can a season derail? The answer is terrifyingly fast. We are talking about the extreme fragility of a 53-man roster. To really grasp the gravity of this moment, you have to understand what it means to have a perfectly healthy roster in today's NFL. It's a mathematical improbability. Honestly, for 53 professional athletes, men who willingly subject their bodies to human car crashes for a living, to arrive at training camp without a lingering hamstring pull, a tight lower back, a shoulder tweak, or, a nagging post-surgical recovery from January, it's a unicorn. It almost never happens. The Dallas Cowboys arrived at training camp feeling like they had legitimately defied the laws of football physics. They were standing on that practice field, looking at a depth chart that was essentially flawless. It was a coach's absolute dream scenario. But the NFL is a league that feeds on unpredictability. A single moment, a single fraction of a misstep on the grass nearly burned all of that perfectly laid groundwork straight to ash. It's a stark, chilling reminder that in this brutal game, you are always just one single play away from an existential crisis. Part 1. The Unseen Threat. The most dangerous moments in football aren't always the bone-crushing, blindside hits over the middle of the field. Sometimes, the most dangerous moments are actually disguised by the deceptive optimism of the very first practice of training camp. Think about it. The players are incredibly fresh, the energy is electric, the brutal collisions haven't even started yet. This environment lulls everyone, from the diehard fans up in the bleachers to the seasoned executives in the front office, into a deeply false sense of security. But the threat is always there. It's lurking silently in the biomechanics of every single sprint, every sudden cut, and every explosive backpedal. Just consider the sheer statistical anomaly of opening a training camp with 0 players on the physically unable to perform or PUP list, 0 players on the non-football injury or NFI list. Front offices literally lose sleep over these designations in late July. Placing a player on these lists dictates contract tolling, it alters roster flexibility, and it completely handcuffs salary cap maneuvers. Teams almost invariably have a handful of guys recovering from off-season surgeries or nursing lingering soft tissue damage. To open camp without a single player on these lists, that gave the Cowboys a massive, uncharacteristic advantage over the rest of the league. They were playing with house money. But, as you'll see when you possess this impossible level of pristine health, you also have absolutely everything to lose when gravity and physics decide to intervene. Part 2. A non-contact nightmare. The final 30 minutes of a practice session can be a brutal, invisible trap. The day was almost over, the media was probably already drafting their overwhelmingly positive reports about a highly successful first day of camp. The coaches were getting ready to blow the final whistle and transition everyone to the film room. But fatigue, even just a microscopic fraction of it, begins to set in. Focus can wane by 0.5%. And in this specific, vulnerable window of time, the Cowboys' pristine health record was violently tested. Let's break down the exact timeline and the terrifying biomechanics of what actually happened here. It's late in the session. Veteran safety PJ Locke is engaged in a routine coverage drill. He drops into a rapid backpedal, a movement a professional defensive back has executed tens of thousands of times since high school. To stop and change direction, the athlete must violently plant their foot into the ground. Now, the friction coefficient of modern molded cleats on practice turf is immense. They're designed to grip the surface like an absolute vice. Locke plants his left foot to break forward. There's no collision, there's no pileup of massive bodies, there's no 300-pound offensive lineman accidentally rolling up on his leg. It's a non-contact event. And if you follow this sport, you know that in the National Football League, non-contact is the most terrifying phrase imaginable. When that foot sticks in the turf, the kinetic energy generated by a 210-pound elite athlete moving backward at high speed suddenly transfers entirely into the knee joint. The joint absorbs a violent rotational force it was simply never biologically designed to handle. Locke immediately hobbled off the field. The drill stopped dead. And then comes the silence. A heavy, suffocating silence just completely falls over the practice field. The shrill sound of the trainer's whistle blows the drill dead. I want you to imagine the gut-sinking dread of a head coach pulling his eyes away from the offensive installation only to see his veteran safety limping in obvious, undeniable distress. Locke was escorted off the field by head trainer Jim Maurer. He did not return. If you've ever been around a professional football team, you intimately know this specific walk. It is a tense, agonizingly slow march to the blue medical tent. The entire Cowboys organization stopped breathing. That blue medical tent is a literal isolation chamber. A player walks in, the flap closes, and the fate of the entire defensive secondary hangs entirely in the balance. Behind that thin canvas, millions of dollars in salary cap space and months of intricate defensive scheming are suddenly in jeopardy. In those excruciating minutes before the trainer walks back out, every single catastrophic, season-ending scenario flashes before a coaching staff's eyes. Part 3. The immediate aftermath. The visceral fear that grips a coaching staff in this isolated moment honestly cannot be overstated. When a player goes down without being hit, the historical data overwhelmingly points towards severe, season-ending ligament damage. Inside that tent, the medical staff wastes absolutely no time. They immediately perform what's called the Lockman test. That's a clinical maneuver where the trainer places one hand on the player's lower thigh and the other on the upper shin, pulling forward to check the structural integrity of the anterior cruciate ligament. The ECL's entire biological purpose is to stabilize the knee during the exact rotational, high-stress, change of direction movements a safety makes on every single snap. So the initial fear permeating the entire facility was a complete rupture of that ligament, and we all know what that means. A torn ACL means the season is over before it even begins. It guarantees immediate reconstructive surgery, 9 to 12 months of grueling, dark, isolated rehabilitation, and a massive, gaping hole in the roster that cannot easily be filled. But then, the diagnosis finally filtered out, prompting a monumental, collective exhale across the Cowboys complex. A hyper-extended knee. The knee joint had bent backward slightly past its normal healthy range of motion. Is it painful? Intensely. Does it require strict monitoring and rehabilitation? Absolutely. But the structural integrity of the ligament held strong. It was not a tear. The specter of catastrophic damage was avoided. They stared directly into the abyss of a season-ending injury and, by some incredible stroke of pure luck, pulled back from the edge. Part 4. Dodging a major bullet. Make no mistake about it, Dallas truly dodged a major bullet here. To the casual observer, losing one safety in July might not seem like a full-blown crisis, but losing this specific player would have been a catastrophic blow to the team's entire defensive blueprint. PJ Locke is not just a warm body filling out a jersey number. He's a carefully selected, highly calculated piece of a very complex defensive puzzle. 6 years. That's how long Locke has spent grinding in the National Football League, predominantly with the Denver Broncos. Now, the average NFL career lasts barely over 3 years. To survive 6 seasons as a defensive back means you have outlasted multiple draft classes specifically designed by front offices to replace you with younger, cheaper talent. It means your mental processing speed is absolutely elite. Surviving that long requires the ability to diagnose complex offensive formations in a fraction of a second. It means instantly understanding intricate crossing route concepts before the receivers even make their breaks and executing flawless pre-snap reads. That hard-earned encyclopedic knowledge of NFL speed and geometry, that is exactly what Dallas invested in during free agency. And this shared history is the true crux of the crisis. Enter Christian Parker. He's the new Cowboys defensive coordinator, who formerly coached the defensive backs out in Denver and personally helped develop Locke. Because of this deeply intertwined history,
Locke essentially operates as the defense's system translator. Parker runs a highly complex, modern NFL scheme. It relies heavily on brilliantly disguised coverages, rotating split safety shells the very moment the ball is snapped, and incredibly aggressive run fits from the secondary. Locke already speaks this complex defensive language fluently. He knows the nuances, he knows the specific checks at the line of scrimmage, and he knows exactly when it is safe to break the rules of the defense to go make a play. He acts as the on-field quarterback, making those frantic pre-snap audibles and ensuring the highly touted rookies and new free agents line up correctly before the play clock expires. Losing your primary translator on day one of scheme installation, that fundamentally shatters the learning curve for the entire defense.
Part 5. The Ripple Effect.
A near miss like this sends violent tremors through the broader position group. The defensive depth chart is a highly delicate, carefully balanced ecosystem. Just look at the safety room. You've got Caleb Downs, a first-round selection carrying the immense weight of massive draft capital and immediate expectations, but still possessing the raw processing speed of a rookie. You have Jalen Thompson, a highly coveted free agent addition brought in to be a physical enforcer down in the box. You've got Malik Hooker, the entrenched returning starter who operates as the single high center fielder, utilizing his insane sideline-to-sideline range. And finally, you have PJ Locke, the system veteran binding them all together. This is a room overflowing with premium talent, but it requires intricate spacing and highly specialized roles to actually function. Removing Locke from this equation forces a catastrophic domino effect. If the veteran translator goes down, players are instantly forced out of their natural positions to cover the gap. A box safety who thrives near the line of scrimmage might suddenly be forced to play deep half coverage. A deep third center fielder might have to step up into the slot against a shifty receiver. It immediately exposes the entire defense to offensive mismatches and structural vulnerabilities. It's like pulling the linchpin out of a machine.
Now, contrast the sheer chaos of a sudden non-contact injury with how NFL teams usually manage known physical issues. Take a look at defensive lineman Donovan Ezeroku and defensive back Deron Bland. Both missed spring work. Both were placed on a strictly monitored status by the coaching staff, yet are fully expected to participate without restriction. This represents what we call the controlled burn of an NFL training camp. Modern franchises utilize cutting-edge sports science algorithms, biometric GPS tracking, and advanced load management protocols to safely ramp up players who are recovering from known issues. The trainers completely control the environment. They control the exact number of reps. But a sudden non-contact hyperextension? That is a wildfire. It destroys all predictive data and spreadsheets in an instant. It proves that despite spending millions of dollars on sports science, absolutely no algorithm can account for the sheer, violent, random unpredictability of a cleat catching wrong in the turf. And looming over all of this fragile biology is a deeply ominous threat from coach Brian Schottenheimer. He stated quite clearly, "There will be more physical work this summer than in my first camp a year ago." This is a chilling reminder to the players and to all of us analyzing the game. The bodies are already breaking down. Ligaments are already stretching to their absolute limits. And remember, the players are still just in shorts and t-shirts. The intensity is only going to ramp up from here. What happens when the 300-pound offensive linemen put on the armor? What happens when the real, unforgiving physics of professional football take over, when collisions start generating the literal force of a minor car crash on every single play? The danger isn't passing. It is compounding exponentially with every tick of the clock. The pads aren't even on yet. The real violence hasn't even begun. Dallas survived this terrifying non-contact nightmare, but the brutal, grinding war of attrition that defines an NFL season is only in its absolute infancy. If a championship window can almost violently slam shut in a quiet, non-contact moment on the very first day, who is next when the real hitting begins? Thank you so much for joining me on NFL Nexus. If you want to continue going far beyond the surface of the game with us, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit like on this explainer, and comment your thoughts below on how you think the Cowboys will manage this kind of pressure going forward. Also, become a channel member to support these deep dives. Keep your eyes on the details, folks, because in this league, everything can change in seconds. See you next time.